That gets
Somebody
punched on most.
Commissioner Batty, have you been shouting at clouds lately?
Nobody listens.
Get you a bag of birdseed.
That's a really good idea. No, this too shall pass. That's my message.
Everything does.
It does, yep. Regardless of what Google and CNN and CNBC and
Fox.
Fox, whoever, regardless of what they say, this is going to end and it's going to pass and life's going to go on. I am a student of history. What amazes me is how we can't learn from history, you know?
Mm.
I mean,
Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And
Yeah.
we do.
yeah, we do.
Meanwhile, I just live in history around me here. Like,
And what do we have a
I am
picture of?
loving your
whole
old
state of
Fort
history.
I gotta figure out how to do that. What I want to do is I want to give it back like a space shuttle or Apollo module backdrop, you know, so people think, you know, so I can lay down and then people
Or
wonder
park bench.
why I'm laying down.
So Justin, what are we looking at tonight?
This is the old park. My head is kind of probably where Kodiak Coffee is. Off to my right is the railroad tracks, the bike path going up and over the Broadway.
Gotta go. Sorry, you gotta go.
Wow.
Very nice.
All those trees and a
Mhm.
pagoda, no less.
Yeah, it was all owned by the railroad, and so it was a nice, beautiful park. And that band shell to my right was actually moved to the park where it is now, and it became a sandbox for the kids for many years. The more you know.
You must be a lifer for Forest Lake.
He's building the brand.
Okay, folks, it be 7 o'clock and I get to kick this off. We do not get to call to order or anything else. We do our election of officers first. So I am going to open the nominations for Chair of the Planning Commission. Come on, folks. Okay, then I'm going to take privilege. And I'm
No,
going
no,
to nominate
Kevin.
Paul.
Kevin's got his hand up.
Yeah, Kevin.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I
Kevin,
can't see you.
I'm sorry. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I know this is always a fun thing to go through. So we have a lot of really capable people, and I'm not sure who wants to do this and who doesn't want to do this. But I think our former Planning Commission member and former council member and now back again, a Planning Commission member, Paul, probably would still be doing this if he hadn't taken a sabbatical and went to council for a little while. If he's willing, I would like to nominate Paul to be our Planning Commission chairman. That would be my nomination.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Then I call for a vote. Karen, would you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty, Commissioner Miller,
Hi.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
Commissioner Gerard.
I'll abstain.
Then I thankfully turn this over to our chairman. Go, Paul.
Well, you know, thank you all. I really thought you would have learned the last time I did this. It's a privilege and an honor to chair these meetings. It does require me to think a little more than that I'm used to. So, but I'll do the best I can. So thank you all. So we need a vice chair. So I'll be looking for nominations. Kevin?
Again, we have a lot of really capable people and you're all great. But Ms. Young, Commissioner Young, if you would be interested in being vice chair, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Young because, again, most experienced next to Paul, does a great job, and be honored if you would do the vice chair as well.
Yes, I would.
Second. If you need one.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Karen, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Young,
Abstain.
Commissioner Gerard,
Aye.
sorry, Chair Gerard, Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, Susan. Would you like to say a few words?
Later.
I have no doubt. All right. We will call the meeting to order. Karen, if you would take, well, we have the roll, but could we take the roll, please, formally?
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Batty,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Keen,
Here.
Commissioner Brink,
Here.
and Chair Gerard.
Here. I'd ask if you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you want to turn your video off. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
To
to
the
the
to the
flag
flag
of the United
United
States
States of
of
America,
America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic
For which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
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 under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Number 5 on the agenda tonight is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Got a motion by Commissioner Brink, second
A second.
by Commissioner Miller. It's not debatable, so we'll take a roll, please. No, wait a minute. I guess it is debatable. Any discussion? I'm sorry. I'm a little rusty at this. Since hearing none, Karen, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Chair Gerard.
Aye. Next is to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from the February 10th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Young,
I move that we approve the Planning Commission minutes of the February 10th, 2021 meeting.
do I have a second? I'll second. Any discussion on them? I can't second? Oh, because I'm going to abstain. Dang, I told you I was rusty. Commissioner Miller?
I'll second.
Should have put a pro in here.
I'm reconsidering that nomination.
Then a motion and a second. Any discussion or changes? Hearing none. Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
and Chair Gerard.
Aye. I'm sorry, I abstained. I had it right the first time. And I should have taken my vitamins this morning. Next up is the high school concession building sign, CUP. I assume, Donovan, that you're giving the presentation.
Yes, sir.
All yours.
Chair, members of Planning Commission, I'd like to present the CUP amendment to actually act as an amendment to the CUP amendment approved by the Planning Commission in October. And this relates to, the whole project related to athletic field improvements, stadium reconstruction, multi-purpose field construction, track reconstruction, really some great improvements over there at the high school. However, one piece that evidently didn't make it into that packet that the Planning Commission approved was signage for the ticket concession and restroom building on the north end of the football field and track. And so what I'd like to do is share what the Planning Commission did. Can you see the share?
Mhm. Yep.
For some reason oh, here we go. So you can see basically is about a, 18, about 20 square feet sign said Rangers. Well, that's not showing enough Ranger spirit. So what is proposed, I believe this was probably the original intention, is a illuminated 113 square foot sign with FL logo on each end. And this is on that building on the north side. Let me kind of orient you here a little bit. And so what we see is, of course, good views on the top of the screen here. This is north, would be to your left. And so this proposed building here, so the signage is proposed to be on the west side, that the large Ranger and FL configuration I showed. And then on that north side of the building, a smaller, where's that? There's a smaller 18 square foot FL logo. And both of these are proposed to be illuminated with the larger one facing the west, which faces over the athletic fields. This one faces north to the high school parking lot. And where it's hundreds of feet to either the property line and no direct facing that nearby residential across Goodview Avenue. The school district says these will only be illuminated during events, and the recommendation is for approval with conditions that the required building and electrical plans be obtained, the signs be built in accordance with approved plans, and the ticket concession restroom building signage be turned off after 10 p.m. With that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission. And I should also say, Larry Martini from the school district is here to represent the application. Greetings, Larry.
Any questions for the staff? Commissioner Miller?
Donovan, do you know, in comparison to the other sign that we approved that is on the current athletic building that faces 61, in terms of the size of the lettering and in terms of the size of the sign, what is the comparison to this sign? You know, when we originally approved that sign, I guess we all kind of misunderstood the actual size of it, because I think some of us wish it wasn't as large as it is. But could you give us a comparison in terms of the lettering and the logo size compared to that sign?
Perhaps Larry has the exact square footage on that. My recollection, it's around 350 square feet. This one at 113 is about 1/3 that size.
No, I understand in terms of the overall length, but I'm talking about the height of the sign
Oh,
versus, on the letters compared to the other one in terms of the height of the letters.
okay. So the height of these letters is 39 inches, a little over 3 feet.
It's large.
And that's for that's for the FL, that's for the logos. The letters themselves, I'm sorry, are listed at about 30 inches.
So without too much work, or maybe Larry knows in terms of comparative to the sign on the athletic building, height of those letters, are they similar or is this smaller? By how much?
I don't know the exact amount, but it's definitely smaller. Those on the field house are feet. That's enormous.
Yeah, yes, they are. You're right. They are. We approved it, so I can't, I was just looking for a comparison.
Commissioner Keen. Go ahead, Commissioner Keen.
Well, what I read on the report was that the sign that we approved in October of 2020, it was 20 square foot, not illuminated. And now they want 113 square feet illuminated. So that's a big difference. That's like 6 times the size of what we approved. I guess I don't know why it needs to be that big. The letters, the logo, and that's just the FL logo. I don't know what the real logo is. Is it the horse? Is it the FL? Is it the Rangers? What's the real logo? But their diagram says FL. I think the lettering and everything out on the field house, when you're coming up 61, it looks hideous. It's just so gaudy, and it's like advertising, not Forest Lake High School, Forest Lake School District. And this is just a concession stand out by the field. Everybody coming in there, they know where to get a hot dog. They know where the bathrooms are. I don't think it needs to be 113 square feet, illuminated with all this stuff on the sides and, to tell people where it's at and have it illuminated. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. It's a ticket booth. Everybody's going to be walking right by it on the way in. We approved a 20 square foot sign before, and if you look at the pictures, that's just fine. It says Rangers, maybe put up, if they want to add a couple more small ones on the sides that say FL, I'm for that. But I don't know, that just seems like another hideous display of at the high school. That's all.
Other questions for staff? Seeing no hands raised, thank you, Donovan, for your presentation. We do have Larry Martini from the school district here. Larry, would you like to add any comments or?
Just one quick comment. This was an idea from the high school principal and architect that came about in November. So it was after your approval, but before the folks had put everything together for bidding. And they really would like to see this. It would only be on during events. And so I would urge your approval. Thank you.
Any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Young?
Mr. Martini, having just a little bit of experience with school signs, have you gotten Booster Club donations or a private benevolent donation for the increased cost of this sign?
We did not get any donations. They're after donations for all sorts of other activities, but not a sign specific donation, no.
There is a very significant cost difference. And so I kind of assumed that if you were going for that you were doing that because you'd gotten, specific donations from the booster clubs or somebody in Forest Lake to support that sign. Thank you.
Other questions of the applicant? Larry, I have one. It has to do with the orientation of the views on your drawings. I just want to make sure I'm right. I always considered the football fields being south of the high school, which I would be looking at the elevation of, which would be the north elevation. So the north elevation is just going to have the FL facing the parking lot, and then facing basically the visitors bleachers will be the Ranger, welcome to Ranger territory, or whatever it says exactly. Is that correct?
That's close to correct. We have two parking lots. The one that was existing and resurfaced, the FL would face that. And then we also have the parking area that was expanded towards the district office. And so Donovan's got his cursor there. Welcome to Ranger territory would be shining onto that parking area. And people will walk in to the right side of the ticket booth as they approach from that parking area.
Thank you. Other questions of the applicant? Seeing no hands, this is not a public hearing, but do we know if there's anyone who wanted to speak to this issue? We're usually pretty. No one in that we know of already. You know, personally, it's going to me, the sign's going to be on during the game. It's going to be off the rest of the time. I don't have a lot of problem with this big sign, especially since it's facing their parking lot, but that's just my opinion. So I'd be looking for either further discussion or a motion. Commissioner Batty?
I just, for the record, we're again setting a precedent. And just, it's not going to be any secret, and you're going to have other people come wanting, and they're going to point to this. And the other sign, I've probably had, there's two things in my tenure on the commission here that have garnered the most attention to me by the Forest Lake citizenry. And one of them was this sign on the field house. Some of them are even people who are part of the school district, wondered how on earth that happened.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Keen?
Yeah, I really don't have a problem with them putting signs on it, having it lit up and stuff like that. I just think it's a big waste of taxpayers' money that they're going from a 20 square foot sign to a 113 square foot sign, illuminated, and who knows else. Are they going to have signs in there where it says, come and get your hot dogs, and, you know, things moving around on it? Or is it just a stationary sign? You know, and like Commissioner Batty said, you know, I've gotten a lot of comments on the sign on that field house, how basically it's hideous. It's advertising for the school district, not saying this is Forest Lake High School and we're proud of it.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller?
Donovan, can you tell me and tell us, in terms of sign ordinances, it's not within the actual ordinance of our allowed signs, is it?
No, that is something is different here. I mean, there are maximum square footages of 200 square feet for a commercial sign in a commercial district, commercial wall sign. This obviously is a residential district. You know, schools are conditional use within those. So basically, we are creating different rules for it. I mean, I understand how some might argue there's a precedent with this type of sign, but essentially it's a special case because there are activities here that occur nowhere else, and I understand the conversation around the initial field house sign. And I tend to agree with that one as well. But, we are looking at now a different signage, one that's not going to be on, 24/7 like the Fieldhouse signage. And I did do a little check with one of our staff members who lives in the area on who's younger, has kids in schools, on, what did he think the size, was. And he talked about, Chisago, I guess, has a new athletic facility, and other schools, and how this size was pretty much in line with what he's seen at other schools in the area, and his daughter's in athletics. So he's visited a number of these. And so I kind of took that as, I think, is a kind of my check on, well, is this appropriate or not? I'm not a football fan. I don't really know the athletic culture. I didn't want to insert my personal opinion on this, but more of, okay, what's suitable for this to express the Ranger spirit, or something that's meant for these kind of festival events, which athletic events are. But it's the Friday Night Lights, football, could be track, could be other kind of pep rallies or anything of that sort. And so that's what I base in my recommendation on, and with the school district's agreement to only hold, keep it on during events. I put as a condition of approval, nothing past 10, which matches the other illuminated signs for their that they've have on the for the other monument sign. And I think that's, or maybe it's the parking lights. I'm sorry, I think it's the parking lots where there was the 10 p.m. illumination limit. So so that's kind of where my thinking is, and it's just the signage seems to match better, in line with other communities' athletic signage.
Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Miller, you had your hand up?
Yep, sorry, I thought you said Commissioner Young. Again, I appreciate that. And I don't necessarily have an issue with the sign. I was just really trying to make a comparison just in my mind in terms of the size. I mean, there's nothing better than, as a parent or as a student, walking up to an event and having your pride and your name, on those things that people can see, especially when visitors come. So I was just trying to really make a comparison in terms of the size.
Commissioner Young?
Commissioner Batty made a good point that I hadn't quite thought of yet, and that was that this is a precedent, and we have Lakes International Language Academy has 2 schools that are in residential areas also, which would, of course, expect to be able to have similar size signs, and North Lakes Academy would also, I expect, be interested in a similar size sign. So if we approve this, we just need to understand that that's where we're going. And Commissioner, I appreciate that point.
Other comments?
No.
Commissioner Keen?
No, I'm not going to say it.
All right. Since we have no questions or comments remaining, the chair is looking for a motion. Well, we'll see where this goes. I'll make a motion to approve the sign for the Forest Lake High School concession stand with the 3 recommendations of the staff. Commissioner Miller?
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Any discussion on the motion? See nobody raising their hand. Karen, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Young,
Yes,
Commissioner Batty,
I'm sorry, what was the
Oh.
vote?
No,
Commissioner, Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
No.
Commissioner Brink,
No.
and Chair Gerard.
Yes. Could you tell me what the final was? I lost some of the audio. I'm not quite sure of the vote count.
3 and 3.
We have 3-3.
Commissioner Young?
Three yes, 3 no.
Commissioner Young, can you help me out on how does that affect the motion?
motion fails.
That's what I thought. Any other motions? Hearing none? Otherwise, the motion fails, which I understand is correct, means we are denying the sign. Is that correct, Commissioner Young?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That is correct.
Thank you. So the results are in as they say. So what happens next, Larry, is that if you wish, you can appeal this decision to the City Council. I believe you have 1 week to get something to the staff. I'm not sure if it goes to Donovan or to Karen or who it goes to. Can either one of you answer that for me?
If it's
It
going
ju-
to the council, you would send it. If it's going to the council, I think you would send it in to me so I can get it onto a council agenda.
Very good. So Larry, please send if you wish to appeal, please send it to Karen and she'll get it on for the council agenda.
Okay, thanks, folks. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thank you for attending this evening. Move on to number 8, addition of the industrial zoning land use and draft interstate commerce text district text. And this is a discussion. So it will be, I assume, Donovan, what you're just looking for is some input tonight. We won't be making any motions.
That is correct.
All yours.
Thank you. So we've done a couple of these conversations before, but I think I need to get much more rapid with these. So this is the beginning of a series of conversations related to the comprehensive rezoning in order to make the zoning code consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan. So in some ways we'll do something of a helicopter view and start to drill in the details. But first, I'd like to get some broad guidance from the Planning Commission on some of the uses involved here. So and potential uses, land uses within the city. And these are taking, I'm looking at pieces that were part of the comprehensive plan text, and then saying, is this something that, or else, is this something that you want me to investigate further? Or in some of these cases, these represent inquiries I've had from residents, from businesses, and I'd like to see, kind of take the temperature of the Planning Commission on, well, what do you think? Is this something that, again, you'd like to see in our city or something to explore? And obviously, as Chair Gerard mentioned, this is all discussion. No decisions are being made here. But I think it can be really useful to give staff direction on what you'd like to see and how you'd like to see the comprehensive plan implemented within the zoning code. First of all, on the agenda is a twofold regarding industrial zoning districts. And first of the first one comes out of kind of a need, I think, to, this is something I brought up before when we were talking about the interstate property, interstate removals with their CUP last summer. And this related to, well, what, what potential uses could be there that could kind of reflect what where the market is, the size of the parcels, and there are many reasons that our industrial zoned land is vacant, but some of them could be zoning. So I'd like to at least investigate, explore, propose some potential land uses that perhaps could go within that the industrial zoning district. And this one, just to give you, just to allow you believe, if you don't know, where this industrial zoning district is, it's surrounding the airport. So I can give you a little bit of a screen here that'll kind of locate you with in the areas there. It's purple in the zoning map. And these are areas that are bounded by Highway 97 to the north, Forest Road to the east, and then and basically coming around to the as far as developable land around to the Forest Lake Industrial Park, the city-owned parcels on the west side of the airport. Fortunately, the city has sold 2 of these to the owner of Team Vantage, who's going to relocate his custom mold design building here to fill in those. So that's a manufacturing facility. Within the zoning district, it's, there's the industrial zoning district permitted uses are the ones you'd expect, and the ones that involve industrial, condominium, multi-tenant structure. I'll display that also. And they, so if you can you read text on your screen? Is that useful?
Clear.
Okay. So we have industrial, condominium, multi-tenant structure, manufacturing, medical office, the airport, public facility, public recreation, warehousing, distribution, research and technology center, wholesaling. And those are the permitted uses. We have a few more related to conditional that relate to like commercial recreation, transportation, motor freight terminal, commercial kennels, and the like. And then we have place of worship leasing space or school facility leasing space, and that allows for that ice rink to be there. And so thinking of doing some examination, kind of looking at some other areas, some of our peer cities in Minnesota, and just a preliminary look. I've developed a list here that was in your packet, shown here in the bullet points around what are potential ones that could be added. And this is kind of where, as a discussion item, I'd like to propose, just throw things out and definitely have, just the free conversation, yay or nay, what do you think? Or, I'll have pen in hand. Do you think these fit or not? This is just for this industrial, the I industrial zoning district. So what I'm seeing here potentially is data centers, bakery wholesale, health recreation facility, contractor operations. And this is essentially what I was discussing with the interstate project when I talked about standards last August with them, with that application. Food processing, laboratories, showrooms, adult-oriented businesses, which that's a whole different discussion, but it's potentially where we need to place those somewhere within the city as a First Amendment right. But let's not spend much time on that. I'll come back as its own individual standalone. But potentially that could be located in industrial zoning districts. Fitness centers, private recreation facilities, brewery tap room with on-site drinking and eating as accessory uses, micro distillery with on-site drinking and eating as accessory uses. So I'd like to kind of throw the floor open to members. I mean, what do you think about any one of these?
Commissioner Miller?
Donovan, is there a possibility you can pull up our zoning map and point out the different industrial areas in our city besides those out by the airport?
Certainly. So,
Because I assume it would apply to all industrial areas at this point if we made changes.
well, this is specific to the I industrials. What I'm saying right here, obviously we have 3 current types of industrial zoning districts, and I mean, I'm sorry, 2 different types, and then we'll talk about the next one, the one that would be, you know, in that southwest, the kind of the future interstate area, interstate interchange. So here's in purple, we'll see this. So it's essentially focused around the airport. We see some of these areas that are city owned, and you know, the Fenway Fields are zone industrial, but let's not develop those. And then we have some of the areas that are impacted by airport zoning to be largely undevelopable, you know, site of a, you know, future city, you know, public works building, whatnot. And then we have the McCullough storage buildings that were kind of non-conforming use. They were kind of added in. So we have those properties on Forest Road I mentioned, and the few here on 210th Street. So this is all the I industrial.
Nothing up near downtown or down Broadway.
Not I industrial. We'll jump over to the B3, which is the Lemon Industrial Business District. And so here, my map will show you purple in a minute here. Come on. So basically this 15th Street area is also zone industrial. My map is really slow to load here, but okay, there we go. So this is a B3. So I'm not, for the uses I mentioned, you know, they could potentially go here, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner Miller, is, you know, because these could also go there, or not, you know, maybe it could be scaled to different sizes. It's kind of applying more of the Band-Aid to the I industrial zoning district, which is my intention here. And then we also have one final B3 zoned area. It's not currently served by public water and sewer, so it, you know, there's no immediate plans for that. You know, basically, you know, the Highway 8 is quite an impediment for that utility extension. But you know, we do have this area also. It's zoned same as that, the 15th Street Southwest area. That provided a good overview there.
Yep, thank you very much.
Okay.
Commissioner Young?
I've got a few things. Over and over again, we say that we're going to attract new development that will present a positive image to the community. And I'm just not sure how we define that and how we use that, especially with industrial uses. There are things that many cities call industrial uses, transfer stations, scrap metal yards, automobile wrecking facilities. Those are also industrial uses. And so I guess I don't know how we handle that. When we rewrite this, why are roof-mounted solar energy systems accessory uses on almost all of our codes? And I don't understand why that is the way it is. I think that rather than adding things to the list, which then creates a lot of controversy about, well, you're going to have a new use, so you're going to add this one to the list. We have a very, very broad term that says other uses similar to those permitted in this section as determined by the Planning Commission and the City Council. So I'm not sure why we need to expand the list. Because that really does create a lot more controversy when we have something that is fairly broad and fairly inclusive and gives us a lot of latitude in the future.
Okay, a couple things on that. The guidance I've gotten from the city attorney, and this is probably more, implicit than explicit, is that, well, they have been explicit at times. A use should be listed, if and that's the way the zoning code's written. Anything that's not listed really is prohibited. And that catch-all phrase has been in there for a number of years. But I think, once the city attorney, gets his hands on it, I think he'll eliminate that because of it just being overly vague. And, you've noticed where this has come up where, we added, agriculture. They wanted, adding agriculture as an interim use in that B2 district, for that property behind Menards.
Mhm.
That was coming from, was guidance from the city attorney that basically they wanted that clarity. And I think that does provide more certainty for developers when they can look and see, oh yes, this is what I want. And I think it creates a kind of clearer rules for staff as well. One thing that has been a popular inquiry is, self-storage units. Right now, they're basically a permitted use in the I think it's B3, permitted use in the B3. Well, it was conditional use in the B2, like where we brought in the Minnesota Lakes, last summer, and permitted use in B3, like where Morley's property is on 15th Street, the Forest Lake mini storage. But there's been many folks who are asking for industrial, if this industrial zoning district permits self-storage, and I say no, and it's so much easier for me to say no because I don't think that that's any I mean, it's really, unless you do multiple like story self-storage where it's all kind of inner hallways, I really don't think there's a way you can present that as really attractive development. The high quality that is the purpose of the industrial zoning district, like you mentioned. And it's and I think that the way we get the higher, in some ways it's an easier way function to actually have a list of permitted uses, and that provides some guidance, to get the higher quality development, because these are kind of larger structure. I mean, I think Team Vantage is the poster child for what I think should be an industrial zoning district, a manufacturing facility that's self-contained. There's trucking, there's there's a large amount of impervious surface, but it's interior storage. You don't have any need for screening of outdoor equipment or materials. And we do it, and city staff does get these requests, and one day I got one for asphalt plant, and I was glad I could say no. I think that asphalt plant went next door.
Commissioner Young?
I'd like to follow up. So basically, what the Planning Commission is going to have to do is to think of every possible use for the next 20 years that we believe may come to Forest Lake and say, I would like to be here. I think that all of the planning commissioners and you, Donovan, have heard, oh, it's so hard to develop in Forest Lake. I can't come here because you don't allow me to do what I want to do. So if we are trying to get more folks into Forest Lake, then we need to think of every possible thing that we would allow in an industrially zoned area. And quite frankly, we may have some very, very sharp attorneys, but I'm not sure that they all have good crystal balls. And so for us to imagine every use that we would want, and quite frankly, in an industrial use as it's described here, there is no place for Mr. Winnick to move his property elsewhere in the city. There is no place for Vinco, who is in our city now, to move into an industrially zoned area. When I think about the businesses that are here, this one is going to be kind of challenging.
Thank you. Other comments, concerns? Commissioner Batty?
Well, I have a copy of a paper copy of the ordinance. I know that's kind of an old fashioned thing, but I've got it here. And so you can look at more than one thing at once.
Several of us do.
But I just noticed, one of the things that I noticed here when I was looking through this, the word manufacturing doesn't show up at all in our any of the three industrial zoning.
It does.
Or maybe you need to point it out to me. Maybe I'm missing.
I can show it to you. It just says manufacturing. It doesn't say light manufacturing. Maybe, but here, I'll show you.
So under the permitted use, or I'm under the.
Yeah, so this is
use.
Industrial zoning district number 2 coming in,
Yeah.
manufacturing.
I don't think we're hearing your microphone, Donovan.
I heard it.
I heard it.
Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah,
Nothing.
fine.
Okay.
All right.
I can't hear it on.
I stand corrected, but so
Yeah.
I was
Karen, you're
interested.
the only one.
Oh, okay.
So I was also interested in like your comment about the asphalt plant. And I don't know that I completely understood the basis for your euphoria on that.
My basis is that within where our industrial zoning district is, with this somewhat close adjacency to residential, I don't think that would be a good land use with the number of trucks, the fumes, and yeah.
I wouldn't argue that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't argue that. I was just curious about, is it, you could say that because it's not a listed use? Is that, I'm curious how the logic of this works here.
Yeah, so basically in one of the constructions of zoning codes, this is kind of different than most American jurisprudence. That which is not expressly permitted is prohibited. So, if it doesn't say manufacturing in the industrial zoning district, industrial manufacturing is not allowed in this area, where it's zoned industrial.
Okay.
So I mean, it does have, there's a vacant parcel in that northernmost B3 district I mentioned. And I've had a few inquiries around something close to a contractor yard, or just people, that's what, people want to come, a business wants to come, build a fence, build a small office, and have that for storage of vehicles, equipment, in small office space. I interpret the code saying that's not a permitted use. And so I'm saying, well, is that something now we want to, add in, or is it something that, well, it doesn't really have that kind of capital intensive, more, higher employment potential. Because many of the uses that I have gotten inquiries about are those ones that have a lot more, basically storage, site improvement versus actual structure construction. So they're, Forest Lake, economics are changing, and Forest Lake is a cheaper place to relocate, just cheaper land. So we can fill up these areas, but I think the intention, if we can fill them up with, these types of uses that I'm getting inquiries with, but I think the intention is to have, businesses that provide more of a job potential, and are more intensive in how they develop the property.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
So just kind of as we delve into this, is there, how do we differentiate between manufacturing and light manufacturing? I'm not trying to be
No.
unkind here, but I'm just curious,
We don't.
do we at all differentiate between those? I mean, clearly because there are some manufacturing facilities in that B3, in our B3 zoning area. There's widget manufacturers and, wood manufacturing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
things up there. And I'm just curious, so I'm after some of the same stuff here that I think most of the rest of you are. I want to see the city develop. I want to see. I'm not looking for a stampede here, but and so how can I guess one of the things that I've been interested in, since even through the comprehensive plan process here, is how can we enhance, the look, the feel, the impression that people have of Forest Lake when it comes to some of these kind of things. I mean, we hear this weeping and gnashing of teeth over the fact that, that all of our utilities and services and stuff like that, it's costing us twice the tax income that we get from residential and a very small part of the business side of things. And I this seems to me to be kind of a first foray into this area. And I was also surprised with this listing of spaces, that some of them seem to be very, very specific and others general. And I'm just curious how we decide on, kind of what we list specifically and what is listed generally. I mean, like you have in the same list, you've got manufacturing, which covers a multitude of things. And then you've got other things that are, very, very specific. I mean, it is a one item deal, I mean, no, you say the word and I need to get back to where, like a warehousing and distribution, like a warehouse. There's nobody has any question in their minds about that kind of thing. And I look at the list of what's the permitted uses under C that are there now, and your list, and I don't take this personally, I'm just trying to understand here. It just seems like a number of the things on here are, particularly toward the end of this list, are, I mean, they are a one item specific thing. And I'm just curious why we would start down that road of listing these fairly detailed specific things as opposed to keeping it in more general categories.
Okay. Well, in some ways, I think you're pointing out this is something of the sausage making that goes on, where, and I see this in a lot of the zoning code, like there must have been some instance where the code, the council at the time was addressing a specific concern. Basically, let me start with what you said last. Like the two final ones that look very specific relate to those are commercial permitted uses. And Also thinking of how, this proximity to Fenway Fields, and people have said there's nothing, there's no place to, for any kind of, refreshment nearby. So that was kind of targeted to, well, this is permitted in other commercial areas. Why not in industrial area? And it's industrial. The fitness centers and private recreation facilities are allowed in the B3. I thought, what if we expanded that to the I? And then there's the other ones relate to, basically ones I picked out of Elk River, Hugo, Hastings, zoning codes, what we often kind of calls our peer cities. And these are all first of all, just to stimulate conversation. These are ones I can live with. I guess in some way there's a selection process there. These are ones that I've received some inquiries on, or it seems like they're, potentially could be a decent fit there, or else, because I think one portion of this has been the two big factors, I think, for this industrial area has been there hasn't been the right road infrastructure built. Like for instance, the McCullough property on the south side of 97, just west of interstate, to provide access to that road. It's it's MnDOT, deceleration lane, acceleration lane, a pretty hefty price tag. And I have talked to Vinco about that property, Miss Young, but then also the size of the parcels. Also, it now we know 2020 hindsight that when the city platted those Forest Lake Industrial Park lots, they're not really big enough for the 5, 10, 15 acre industrial sites that we find, because we get inquiries, we're part of the MSP mailing list, different regional economic development organizations, and they're not looking for the 2.5 acre parcels really. So some of these, there are more specific, are related to, what could fit on a 2.5 acre lot. Also, kind of getting back to what Commissioner Young was saying, that I don't think there is a crystal ball out there that's going to predict everything, and that's kind of where, if we can be more general, that but not too general, then then we can interpret, allow as a zoning administrator to interpret a warehouse as a warehouse. It's something that is contained in a building. It's got a loading dock, truck traffic, and a low parking requirement. Somewhat simple. I wish they were all that simple, but and that's, there's actually a whole different philosophy around zoning codes, form-based code, where you just simply, all you do is regulate the box, and you don't really, you don't really regulate what goes on inside of it, beyond certain parameters. We don't have that here. So we have this kind of what they call Euclidean zoning, where you are specifying uses in different areas, and that's kind of the operation. I can, if this, we can start. I can start over with this. This is just discussion.
Yeah.
If you want more broad-based things, and I can go back to talk to, find out what the city attorney can accept as far as, how much latitude staff, planning commission, council can have. Because I don't want to pretend that that's a closed issue. That's not, that's closed discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Brink?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to the changes. To Commissioner Young's point, I definitely see where ambiguity could definitely get us into some tight situations. But on the same note, to Donovan's point too, not making it too specific where there's some wiggle room and stuff to work with. So I just want to put that out there that that seems to make the most sense, I guess, in my mind, if I'm understanding everybody's point correctly.
Commissioner Young?
Donovan, I understand that Washington County is going to bring a household hazardous waste facility up to Forest Lake. Would this fit in the I zoning district?
That would be a good question. Um,
What is it? I missed it.
no one
Um,
asked me that.
It's a household hazardous. If you've ever gone to the Washington County Environmental Center that's down in Cottage Grove, to take a fluorescent battery or old paint or whatever, instead of having to wait until those 2 weekends in June,
Oh,
it would have a permanent facility up here on this end of the county. And I'm just trying to figure out where that would go.
Daddy, I want to show you something.
I think that
No room.
we would have to say, you know, we would have to add that. I mean, we have compost facility, which, you know, legalizes the compost site that's been there for years, but that, you know, and maybe it's government building. Actually, that's kind of actually gets us into another agenda item, number 10, agenda item number 10, with the public institutional zoning district. So actually, I would be recommending taking the land that is, you know, in the future land use plan, designated public institutional, and creating a zoning district to specify, you know, so that those have some ways a better place to live, and then it would basically, you know, allows a permitted use, that type of facility as a government, you know, facility.
So we could put a household hazardous waste site where the golf course is.
Yeah.
Actually, that's
I
a good
think,
location. You can get to it.
Actually, they cannot. That property has to remain park. You can't convert it to something like that. Having taken my beating on that whole discussion. So so well versed on that subject. Back to our number 8, this industrial district. So first, clarify, if I understood you right when Kevin asked, we have 3 industrial districts, correct?
Actually, it's just 2 currently, but we'll talk about a third actually tonight as an agenda item.
Well, you have the one off of Highway 8, you have the one over 15th, and you have this one. Are those other ones that are industrial districts also?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you, no, there's 2 industrial districts, 3 areas. I'm sorry, I was confused.
Okay.
Yes.
So I spent my entire career pretty much in operations and manufacturing. And when I look at this list, and I've been to probably 100 industrial parks in the metro area due to some organizations I belong to. And all of this stuff shows up in those. I can't speak for the adult oriented businesses, but I can speak for all the rest of them that you see these. And when I really think of the industrial district, I think of, you know, like what Team Vantage has, tip up building with probably a 24-foot clear height for a warehouse. And they do what they kind of want in there without any or very, very little outdoor storage. To me, that's an industrial district. When you get into, and I'll give some specific names, you go down the freeway at J there, you got Swing, and they have an outdoor yard there. That, to me, that's more heavy industrial versus manufacturing. So I guess, not that I would be opposed to a Swing, but I would think we'd want to take those on a case by case, just because of the way they are. But so I would look for stuff that sits in buildings similar to Team Vantage has and Gear Grid and some of the other ones. Mr. Young?
Here, and this, because I'm struggling with this too. I know that we'll use Vinco again. They don't have enough room in their property, so they have part of their operation in Forest Lake, and then they have part of it down in Hugo next to the building center. That's a business that has grown up in Forest Lake. Is that something that we would consider industrial? And then Interstate is another one that is here, and we've made accommodations for it. But would we consider that industrial? And if not, then what zoning district will we put those in? Should we create a new one that would be, as you called it, heavy manufacturing or heavy industrial? I'm just not sure how to do this. And I also am really trying to think about what would I call Vinco? They're a construction company. So do we add that to our list or not? I am struggling with this.
So what me as well. I would characterize them as both, Vinco and Interstate as contractor operations. So they have, they're not doing any retail there, but largely they're storing vehicles and material on site and then, going to job, moving those vehicles and material to their job sites on a daily basis.
And what district do we allow them to be in? Currently no. Kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
So is this something that we consider valuable to Forest Lake or not? Our geography uniquely positions us to have those kinds of companies here because we're above the split. They can get to either the west side or the east side very conveniently from Forest Lake. We are absolutely unique in that, much more than, well, except for Wyoming. But if we consider that a strength of Forest Lake, and y'all know that I consider our geography to be one of our greatest strengths, shouldn't we take advantage of that in our zoning code?
I don't disagree. To me, the big key to that is to figure out where can we put it, what I would call a little further away from the residential, because the residents are not going to be happy with that much truck movement. And possibly the 6-foot barbed wire fence with all of the stuff that they're storing outside gets to stay inside where it belongs. And I understand they need that, so when I think of that, I think of right off kind of where Interstate is, right at 97 and 61, you kind of back up to the airport there. You don't have any houses right in that area there. That's not a bad area. Maybe as you go down farther, a little bit down 61, no problem. As we get over closer to Fenway, and they go, well, I got a lot of residents there. We got a lot of other stuff going on. I'm not so sure that it fits quite there. But then again, that's an opinion, not a fact.
And we've got the horseshoe manufacturer there. We've got the folks that used to sell tractors and heavy farm implements there. And MnDOT is going to ask us to restrict the number of entrances onto 97. So on that south side of 97 with easy access to the freeway, does that make sense? Because there aren't, until you get to Fenway and by the Quick Trip, there aren't a whole lot of houses there.
Right.
In the long range transportation plan, there is a backage road that basically is an extension of 208th Street that would, allow that safe access to those properties. Which we do expect that when they get developed, that they'll use that rear entrance as a primary access.
Other comments? I want to keep the meeting moving along. I've got a feeling that we could discuss zoning for hours because that's why we're here, to try to make the city a better place. But I do need to move it along a little bit here. Donovan, do you have what you need for now, or do we just muddy the water so bad you would like some further input?
No, I have some things. I mean, you know, I know it's, I don't think these remote meetings really do, you know, encourage conversation in a way, but and it's difficult to have this, you know, have this thing where we generate, you know, discussions. It's not generally what the Planning Commission does in this realm. But I have some things to start with, and I think that you made some good points, and also like let me see what we can do, and you know, to kind of be general and specific, you know, that sort of thing. Promote the purposes of that. Also want, you know, say with the contractor yards, you know, there is, like with many permitted uses, or just land uses, there are a set of use standards, so that, you know, it could be, you know, as long as, you know, if we look at, okay, we can allow this, well, let's say minimum 10-acre lot or something like that, so that we know that it can't go into certain areas where we don't want it to go, or, you know, access to, you know, must have access to a, you know, a state highway or something like that. So there's ways to make sure that we don't have those impacts on the more sensitive areas or residential that, you know, that we don't want to have. Next on the agenda, I'd like to present some draft interstate commercial district use standards. And so this is the area that I referenced earlier, that relates to the southwest corner, where in our comp plan, a interstate interchange is proposed. There are no immediate plans for that. And if Commissioner Young had her way, it would never happen, but it is in our comp plan, and we've sworn our oaths to abiding by following the comp plan, implementing it. And so within the comp plan, there's the future land use categories. And so this area is guided for highway business. I'll show you the pink commercial zone in a minute here on the map. So it's land guided for this district is intended for businesses that require proximity to the regional transportation infrastructure, such as warehousing, wholesaling, e-commerce, light manufacturing, and data centers. These uses typically include accompanying administrative offices and may include retail wholesales of limited nature. Exterior storage of merchandise is kept to a minimum. And the area, so that's kind of, you know, it's kind of meant to be the e-commerce thing. Some, you know, look at that linen I forget the name of it. The big linen, you know, e-commerce one in Columbus there on the, you know, the east side of, you know, 35E. So I mean, that's, for me, that's kind of a model. And here, can you see this image on your screen?
Yeah.
I changed PDF. So this is about, I think I said 13. I mean, it's rather large. It's envisioned to be the, you know, the 2040 job center. And so I want to get Plan Commissioner, you know, feedback on, okay, what are some, you know, some land uses that you think would fit here. And I've also proposed some basic language around purpose and design character that relate to, you know, what, you know, it being, you know, close to the highway, but still also allowing existing agricultural and residential uses to continue until redevelopment occurs, acknowledging that, you know, on the fast timeline of getting interstate interchange, there would be 10 years from now. And no giggling, Commissioner Young. And so basically, I've kind of proposed here things that relate to, and this is taken for some of those other, you know, industrial uses, potential uses that we talked about earlier. This relates to, you know, allowing those existing uses to continue, those that, you know, exist now, at least for the agriculture. Then brewery, tap room, data center, health recreation facility, industrial condominium. So I'm, you know, light light fleet-based services, manufacturing, research technology office, transportation, freight terminal, truck and trailer sales, repair and rental. So things that actually are, big land uses, and really do need that close proximity to the interstate. And so again, it's trying to anticipate, some ways, where the market's going, what would be large land users. Some of these may be actually able to exist without public water and sewer, but definitely would require, road improvements there. So again, I'd like to throw it open to the floor. What do you think? I mean, just, when we talked about this before, how do these uses land to you or sound to you?
Before I take comments, I want to give a little more history on the back, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm not sure how all this started. So when that pink area was boxed in for this new super kind of industrial park, it's all predicated on the new interchange being put in at 180th. If the interchange doesn't come to 180th, this really is not going to happen.
Right.
You're not going to have the access. So there's a lot of communities that would like the interchange at 180th, and Forest Lake's one of them. Columbus, Lino, and Hugo. All four would have a corner of that interchange then. Otherwise, the interchange is going to go to 170th. It's going to go one or the other, is the thought from MnDOT. If it goes to 170th, this also doesn't look real good for Forest Lake to develop north of at 180th here, because there's no good way to get that mile north. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind, that this is really going to be based on if the interchange comes here. So, Mr. Young?
And Anoka County, Washington County, Columbus, and Hugo have all said that they do not want 180th, they want 170th. And that's been pretty much made really clear to the MnDOT commissioners. So I don't think it's going to happen here. But Donovan, when you say that in your design characteristics that you're looking at things that will not have a lot of outside storage, could you help me understand the transportation and motor freight terminal, the truck and trailer sales and repair, and the light fleet based services, because those all have a lot of truck storage outside.
I guess I should, yeah. For me, that I read that as a material storage, not the actual vehicle storage, which obviously, will occur, in the yards.
Okay. Would you consider that this would be a good place for a car sales thing? What do you call that little White Bear area with all the car sales?
Auto dealerships?
Thank you.
Actually, that very well could be. There have been kind of, again, from talking to people on the phone, they're being squeezed out of other places, especially the used car dealerships. That's something certainly we can consider.
Commissioner Miller?
Excuse me. I also think this would be a more likely area, in my opinion, for something like the contractor operations versus in the light industrial or in the industrial area, like you said, because of all the homeowners and the schools and a lot of the other things up in the headwaters area, the roads. I would rather see the contractor stuff being down there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, this would be like a giant industrial park like you might see in Plymouth always comes to mind, Eden Prairie, Chaska, where they got real wide roads, and it's just commercial building after commercial building with jobs.
Would
my,
you,
my only other comment, Donovan, is you have agricultural uses that were in existence as of now. Would we want to do the same on single family dwellings? Or we're gonna still allow construction?
yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think as I was reading that, I think that is an omission. I do think that's a good idea.
Other comments, discussion?
And I'm still trying to understand why roof mounted solar systems, like I want to put a solar array on my house, or I want to put it on my new manufacturing building. Why is that an accessory use? Why not just, yeah, you can consider that as part of your construction.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's something I really have not studied. I think I've included that. I don't know if that might be there's some, well, I guess Met Council requires like solar access or something like that. That might be something that, might be that sort of Met Council requirement. Or also, we currently don't allow any ground mounted solar to any extent. Basically, it's limited to the accessory structure square footage of the parcel, which pretty much, caps out, about 3,500 square feet for parcels up to 20 acres. And so maybe it's that tie-in to, accessory structure. I'm not sure, but that's something
So
you just
if I
don't
wanna
like.
take-
Huh? Yeah.
If I want to use the entire roof of my manufacturing facility to power my manufacturing facility, that's a no-no?
Oh, no, you
Because it
can't.
can
Yeah.
only be the size of the accessory
No,
structure?
it only on, no, if ground mounted can only, is
Okay.
limited. Yeah,
All
those roof mounted. And I guess that's a question for me. Why is that listed as a land use? Because,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Other comments, discussion? Mr. Batty?
Not to beat that to death, maybe does that have to do with these solar farms, where they're, building acres and acres of these solar panels? Is that what it is?
We get that, that's the next agenda item.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion? Donovan, do you have what you need?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Very good. So we will move on to item 9, additional or amended permitted land uses for districts. This is also a discussion item. And I assume, Donovan, you'll be kicking us off.
That is a good assumption. Let me share. Nope, sorry. I'm not seeing it. Actually, create a little bit of PowerPoint to make it probably easier to read. So looking at, again, this is coming from, this is the idea of implementing, text within the zoning code. And so I'd like to just kind of throw out different ideas, some things that relate to inquiries I've received, or some things that have been part of public discussion for a while. So for potential land uses, of course, we have the accessory dwelling units, and I think we left it, and obviously those standards require a lot of refinement, but to list those as a potential land use, as a conditional use in the agriculture, rural residential, single family, and those other residential zoning districts. Beekeeping, which my little bit of research on that seems like there are a lot more difficulties with regulating that compared to chickens, but potentially I'd like to put that forward. Airbnb is something that most I hear people complaining about those, and there are bed and breakfast standards within the zoning code, but they're really rather outdated compared to what the Airbnb model usually is. Temporary livestock for vegetation management. Got a couple inquiries on this, and found out that even Maplewood does allow this. And basically, you bring goats in. You have these kind of traveling fences. You put little temporary structure, like a plastic kind of dome maybe, for the livestock, and then they do some buckthorn removal or whatever. They clear the property as you. Mobile food trucks or food truck park, something that we had a deputy clerk who actually produced some draft, the draft standards for those a couple years ago, but potentially as a land use, and right now it's a land use to be regulated within the city. Currently, Washington County does regulate these, and we haven't seen a real problem with it, but I wanted to bring it forward to the Plan Commission. And then another thing that was contained within the text of the comprehensive plan is the idea of a rural event center. And then more generally, just additional secondary incomes for, for people owning ag land. If you have other things you want to throw in. Rural event center is something that, when we often hear about it, it seems to me it's the complaints. I was talking to Ryan, our city engineer, about it, and because it is allowed in Scandia, and I was asking kind of what their experience has been, and I can get into that if you want to discuss that a little bit. And then finally, this is actually another inquiry, and this does relate to what you might call light manufacturing. And I mean, these are all kind of buzzwords in a way, maker space, innovation lab, artesian space. I haven't done a lot of research on that, but potentially, again, just kind of throw that out there for discussion. So I mean, these are all, potentially what, potentially land uses within the city. So again, I want to throw the floor open to discussion.
Commissioner Brink?
We're adding the solar farms on that, correct? To the discussion, I didn't see that on the PowerPoint.
I didn't list solar farms. It's something that I'm a little conflicted on, because it's something we don't want to allow in areas that we have already designated for future public infrastructure expansion, public utility expansion. And then we have some areas, predominantly in the southeast area of the city, that right now in the 2040 plan are not designated for that. And it's perhaps public utilities, and that would be, well, not for a long time, extended there. But it's I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's something we should keep on the table, I think, for discussion.
Okay.
I think there's certain restrictions, for solar farms, boundaries and stuff, and wetlands and all that, and where they're going to be, placed. But I think definitely they would be good to discuss. That's just me.
Commissioner Young?
I was curious as to why it's only outside the MUSA boundary. For instance, I think that would be a great co-use if we decide to put a public works facility where the compost site is now. Putting a solar farm in there, I think, would be a great co-use. So I was curious as to why only outside the MUSA boundary. Not just Airbnb, but regular B&Bs. I'd like to see that as a permitted use in some areas. Also, yes, I have been nagging you about the accessory dwelling units. But I want us to really think through this carefully, because when I read the introduction, I'm envisioning a multi-unit building, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, units in an existing single-family zoning district or in a rural residential zoning district. And I think in both of those two, I would really like to see it as not more than 2 additional dwelling units in rural residential and single family, and perhaps 3 additional dwelling units in an ag location. And again, I'm thinking of family farm sort of things where you need grandpa and grandma's house and then, you know, son and daughter-in-law and daughter and son-in-law, you know, something like that. But I really do not want to see us trying to allow 4, 5, 6 plexes in our single family zoning districts or the rural residential, to be honest, because that gets the whole concept of rural residential to go away.
Yeah. Okay, certainly. I don't know if I remember, we did discuss, some potential standards, gosh, about a year ago, over a year. And I don't recall, thinking more than 1, actually.
I was just reading the introduction.
Okay.
Other comments? I have one, on the accessory dwelling units, I'm not opposed to them. I'm not a big fan of making these conditional uses because then it runs forever. I would be more in favor of having it written in the zoning, they can do it. Because if we decide later that this is not a good idea, then it'll be a non-conforming use just. It won't run forever with the land. So I would prefer us to see something that is a little more tightly regulated, not requiring a conditional use.
Certainly. In my little bit of research on this, I did see there's some administrative kind of alternative approval for this so that it could be more tightly regulated than simply like a building permit.
I'd be happier with that. Commissioner Brink?
Just regarding the multi-generational expanded household, obviously there's been discussion on that, and there's been I think a need for that. But also I think with the pandemic and people working from home, you've got people now turning a room in their house that is now an office that maybe otherwise could have been for another family member, but now, that's less room that they would have to have, let's say, a mother-in-law or father-in-law or who knows, that would be able to stay in their house. So just another reason for that accessory dwelling unit to accommodate that.
Because my guess is we're also, when we're trying to accommodate these, we don't, you're thinking 1 per, what sits in the back of my mind is sewer is kind of tight all over the city. And I would assume these people would need sewer, or are they connecting to the current homeowner service? We already got pipe sizing issues in the community.
Yeah. So that's again kind of getting deeper into the use standards, so that maybe there's a minimum lot size required for these, so that we can somewhat limit where they shouldn't go, just for that kind of reason. Just there's not public infrastructure to serve those.
That's right. We're only having the general discussion tonight. We'll give you all the details. Other comments on any of these items or others you'd like to see? Mr. Brink?
Donovan, what is meant by beekeeping permitted in same areas as chickens? Are we talking about just within that lot or within, like, for example, I don't think I can have chickens where I'm at, but isn't there areas within towns that you can't have this? You just mean within the same?
No, I mean, no, your wife may say you can't have chickens, but the zoning code does allow chickens. And basically it's any, place where there's single family residents are allowed, and it's less than 5 acres. I think it was kind of I want to kind of provide a little bit of context for that. So then basically all the single family, the ones that don't allow livestock. I mean, it's even, you could allow in those areas that allow livestock, but you don't have 5 acres. This allows you to have bees, for instance, just 5 acres being that, minimum size of where you can't have livestock below 5 acres. But so it's meant to be more of, just where the zoning code does allow chickens, you could also potentially allow beekeeping.
Commissioner Batty.
So do we currently have an ordinance on beekeeping?
No, and it seems to me like it's pretty complex. There are rules out there, but I've gotten some inquiries around it, and maybe people want to. I mean, it's only been in, I think 2012 is when they passed the domesticated chickens rule for all these residential properties. I think it's carrier pigeons or racing pigeons is the other one. They're also allowed in the city. Ex-council member Young must remember those.
Well, this beekeeping thing is gonna, it's gonna become a bigger and bigger deal here. It is.
So is there a downside to beekeeping? I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but it seems like they got a couple boxes out there and the bees all live inside.
And the next door neighbor is allergic, and so then we have issues.
There's certain height requirements I think that you'd have to have for like a fence, for example. So bees, if I can't remember exactly what happens if they fly just up and over a certain amount, and if it's a certain height, they actually really won't go over that fence. Yeah, I mean, bees obviously get out. I have a friend has an apiary, and he's got his own share of problems, but obviously there's a decreased bee population. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to try to combat that.
And some of these, I've seen, there is a process of approval that does involve consent of neighbors. Of course, this is it's only the current neighbors who get to say. Future neighbors don't get a say in that. If there's interest, I can bring back some standards and we can explore, how that might work.
Other comments? We're good. Donovan?
Okay. Oh, makerspace, was that just a buzzword or is something like manufacturing? This was actually an inquiry in the MU2 zoning district. Any thoughts on that one?
I'm sorry, Donovan, what was that?
It was, I added it. It was part of my PowerPoint, but it was, and I haven't really found exact where it's, Nashville and where else was it? A few places, Indianapolis. It's an idea that it could be something beyond shared co-working, a co-working space. Where you have like office space for multiple people, where they just come in as needed. Kind of a membership, or I'm not sure, pay as you go. But Commissioner Batty knows what I'm talking about.
Yep, I do. Because I'm interested in that. It's a thing for hobbyists, and somebody will put together for lack of a better word, a shop that has all kinds of power tools and sometimes laser engravers and cutters, that sort of thing. It's a very popular item in those. And then you have, there's different ways to subscribe or belong to these things. You can be a member that can come and go as you please, or you can buy your time. It's an up and coming thing. There's 3 or 4 of them in the metro already, and it's probably going to be something that pops up. I think it's a very positive thing myself.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Often they have a tool library associated with them.
And they're seen as basically, obviously the hobbyists, but they're also can be incubators for businesses. People who, develop skills there, develop interest, then realize, oh, they want to go off on their own and, go then rent some other space, and pursue their dream.
As memory serves me, that someone, before they tore the library down, wanted to do something similar where they wanted to do a rented space for multiple people to come in and whatnot. And so we're just hip.
Well, somebody has to be willing to make an initial investment, in this, because they aren't cheap, And I mean, if it's going to be good, it's got to have good equipment, and you have to take care of it. And you can go in different directions. I mean, it can be wood shop oriented, could be welding, metal oriented, can be artistic, painting, sculpture oriented. There's a whole bunch of possibilities.
Other comments? All righty. Donovan, next on your list.
Yes, so I would like to present a well, I guess maybe just a quick head nod. I do think that our licensed residential facility standards need to be updated, and I'd like to see if I can get just basic consensus of planning commission members to do that, so that they can potentially accommodate what they're intended to do. Right now, it's rather restrictive. Is that something you think is acceptable for me to pursue?
I do.
All right, thank you. Basic home occupation standards. This obviously has been kind of bubbling in, with some conversations with residents, or some ideas that get proposed to staff every now and then. I'm not sure where to change these, where you don't start impacting them, because mostly people want to repurpose the homes as retail is what I found. But the current standards kind of are meant to be more kind of like office type use, or something that where maybe you are actually doing some sales, but you're using the UPS or FedEx deliveries to do that, where the customers don't come to the house. Gun sales is one it's actually I've seen a few of those when we've issued these home occupation certificate of compliances. Any ideas? Any immediate thoughts on how that could be improved, or concerns?
Mr. Young.
I've got some concerns about expanding this too much. I'm looking at a home that has suddenly been turned into a mechanic facility, and there are the problem is that they have more cars than they can handle, and so they're parking them on the street, which becomes a real problem. And so I like the way our home occupation is, because basically, yes, you're allowed to run your home cleaning company out of your home as long as you don't have, 9 or 10 employees and 3 trucks sitting in the driveway, and employees coming back and forth. And I like the way that we sort of corral it by saying you have to stay within a regular home household waste. I like the home occupation not being established prior to the members of the family. In other words, you're not buying a house to put a business in. So I kind of like that. I don't have a lot of changes that I would propose to this. But what are the concerns of the other commissioners? And should we say, yes, you can run a business, any kind of business out of your home, or should we continue to say, if you've got a retail business, it should be in a retail business space with parking, et cetera?
Other comments? Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Young. You know, I think we have flexibility now to make exceptions or make, you know, allow it or not allow it. I think the more you open it up, everybody pushes the envelope already. I think it's just going to be, now it's going to be more and more that they're going to push it. So I don't see a whole lot of changes we would need to make to that unless somebody else has something I'm not seeing.
Thank you. Commissioner Batty? You're on mute.
I was just curious about this. The home occupation shall not be established prior to the members of the family conducting the home occupation, taking possession of it and residing in the dwelling. So I built a house in Forest Lake. I was an architect before I built the house. I at some point in time after I bought the house, I built the house, I decided to move my office into the lower level of my house. I mean, it seemed like that's just an extremely difficult thing to, I'm just curious of what that is. Does this hark back to this retail, this idea of using the house for retail? I'm just curious. And then maybe in a more general way, are you getting pressure on this, or is there complaints, or why put this on the agenda in the first place?
I think that the intent of this is that you need to reside in the home before the business starts, if I'm understanding it correctly. I don't think they care. We don't care once you're living in the home. What I think Donovan's trying to get at here is that we don't want you to start your architectural firm in a house and then maybe later move in or maybe not move in, just use it as a business.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah.
It's trying to maintain the primacy of the single family dwelling, so that this occupation, doesn't precede your actual occupation of the home.
Can I throw out, one other thing? I'll tell you a thought that I've had, maybe I shouldn't do this, but the restaurant there on the lake that has had a hard time making it here as of late, I've thought, boy, that would be a good place for me to buy if I wanted to live on the lake. I'd have plenty of room to put a residence in there and plenty of room to have a really nice architectural office in there. And you're saying I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
that was said a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it's not going to happen. But the thought is
probably based on zoning.
no, but I don't think that we restrict currently the ability to live in a portion of a commercial establishment. So if it was the architectural firm and you built a part of it to be your residence, a little history, we had a lot of years ago, some folks that had a electrical company and they were trying to purchase a home in a residential district only for the electric company.
Oh,
And so that's kind of how that happened.
okay.
Yeah, and
I thought of,
so
go ahead.
yeah, so Commissioner Batty, just to clarify, if you certainly could occupy, the restaurant space, you might get some midnight visitors who don't understand that there's been a change in use, but as long as as long as there's you're not employing other people, outside the household within the firm, and the car, there's not more than one car, added, parked on the site, additional related to the business. You could do that. I mean, there's CPAs, hair salons. There's other kind of more like office type uses that,
Dozens of
yeah. So that, I mean, it's certainly, I think the park board has talked about wanting to, take it over and have a, luxury, resort or experience or something, but, so you might have some competition on purchasing that.
Commissioner Miller?
I was just gonna say the park board should take it over and move the boat club out there.
I think
You
they
could
wanted
just-
to have their own
like,
little boat
I
club
think.
out there. Other comments? I don't know. Commissioner Brink, was your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say there was nothing initially that I thought really needed to be changed as far as the current rules. So it all makes sense to me.
Any final closing comments on this section?
There, I have a couple more questions I'd like to pose. And this relates to existing standards. And these relate to, this was actually relates to a real inquiry, and I'd like to see what the Plan Commission's take is on this one. So I mentioned in the industrial zoning district, a transportation and motor freight terminal, as this is a permitted use. So this is the current zoning text on your screen. And there's use standards for a transportation motor freight terminal. And there's actually a clause here that I'm not sure what the history is, but it relates to prohibiting, I'll kind of bold that one, the sentence, on-site maintenance of vehicles and fueling of vehicles is prohibited. And it seemed to me like related to, transportation motor freight terminal, you have a fleet, it'd be unavoidable or just infeasible or just not economically useful to not maintain your fleet, within a motor freight terminal. So I wanted to get, and this would, of course, this is current zoning text, would require a zoning text amendment individually, or, perhaps is this comprehensive rezoning. I want to get your take on whether you think that at least the on-site maintenance of vehicles is okay. The fueling of vehicles, perhaps that's a different matter. And maybe, Commissioner Keene, who's kind of worked with fleets and maybe can weigh in. He has some specific, expert knowledge in this. Not to put you on the spot, Mike.
Commissioner Keene? I think he's frozen here. Commissioner Young?
Having run a garbage fleet or two, it depends on the size of your operation as to whether or not you're going to do some on-site maintenance. Yes, and we discussed it the other night. Changing out batteries, changing out lights, that's one thing. We had that, the other night that we talked about. Doing trannies and things like that, that's often really specialized. But changing oil on garbage trucks, working on hydraulics, maybe doing some light welding, that kind of a fleet operation is really standard. And that's the kind of thing that most fleets would want to be able to do, so that they could, if it's a over the road rig, they'd want to be able to do some maintenance on their fifth wheels and greasing. They'd want to be able to work on their hydraulics. And quite frankly, I don't understand why we prohibit the fuel, because that is quite frankly a big deal. When your folks come in for the night, you want them to be able to fuel up at your facility at night there, because then while they're fueling, they can do their post-trip DOTs.
Commissioner Young, I got a question for you there then. How do we handle, to me, it's always a hazmat part of this. You got great places, they do a wonderful job, they keep everything spotless, and then you get some yahoo out there who is spilling oil all over this place and he's dripping it. What are the regs on that kind of part of the operation, so we don't end up with a green field or a brown field?
most cities actually have building inspectors and code inspectors. And part of your permit or your code for that facility are housekeeping standards, just basic housekeeping standards. The PCA is also going to have some real challenges with you if you are doing a lot of fuel spillage. 5 gallons is, or it was the amount that you could spill without calling the PCA duty officer. And so in terms of fuel spillage, ditto with oil. And so you can control it either through your city's building inspector doing a regular operation, or if it's a large amount, PCA comes into control. And some watershed districts also have that kind of command and control. I'm not sure about our watershed district. And then finally, to be brutally honest, if you run that kind of an operation, you're going to have a bunch of workers' comp problems. And workers' comp will kill you on a fleet operation. So if you're not doing good housekeeping, you've got a lot of slip falls. You got a lot of mess, and it's just good business not to have that kind of operation.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Keen?
Well, does the city have any plans for enforcing any of this? If it was, like the homeowner who's going to do auto repair shop out of his garage and driveway, and he's got 3 leaking vehicles sitting out on a city street, and he can't get to them for like 24 hours. And so now the new blacktop street they put in last year is starting to rot away because of the hydraulics fluid and oil. And then he's got all these clunkers parked in his yard. And I know they might be gone at night and the hoods are closed and stuff, but who enforces those rules in this city?
Donovan?
Yeah, and that's something we follow up on, and car repair is prohibited as a home occupation. And there's one place that I'm currently sending some letters to that it has vehicles in various states of disrepair. So yeah, thanks for reminding me, Mike. No, but no,
You
it's
got 2
true.
of them on July.
Yes,
there
ma'am.
are 2 on July.
Well, that one, yeah, that one's also gotten special attention.
I didn't have anyone in mind in particular, but I've just seen it over the years where people have got, they're doing more than 1 or 2 vehicles at a time. That's all.
Other comments? Thank you. Donovan, you good?
Yes, sir.
So I think, am I correct? I'm kind of trying to follow your list here, and I'm a little lost, but I think we want to move to item 10.
Correct.
Draft, which is draft public industrial or institutional zoning district land uses.
Correct. And so, as we look over the city, there are, there in the future land use plan, there is a kind of a light blue colored areas that we see located where there are churches and schools. So here we can see some of the Forest Lake schools there. See a MnDOT yard over on the west side of I-35. That area that we mentioned before around the future, hazmat site, the city public works area. And I'm sorry, further down, at the end of the kind of the runway area, runway approach for the airport. And so currently there is not a zoning district for these areas. And I believe it's something that I think can be regulated in a different way, and perhaps create these do exist as special districts. And maybe one thing based on our conversation tonight, maybe we should make sign standards for public institutional zo- zoned areas, create within a zoning district so that standards are clear. So what I've provided in the packet is a draft collection of including the purposes and design character for a public institutional land use. And so, briefly, so it's, to ensure that the public and institutional use of property is related to the purposes and policy of the general plan. I mean, so basic language, but then kind of creating the area, and then, having permitted uses that relate to what we've seen now, at government or, place of worship uses, and then some ones that we might see as nonprofits. So we have airport, art gallery, club or lodge, community recreation center, i.e. the YMCA area, government building, central government buildings, hospitals, library, museum, office, place of worship, public recreation, schools, especially school, transit facilities. And again, those roof-mounted solar energy systems, as well as what we've seen, allowed by conditional use, columbarium and cemetery within these, within these light blue areas. And so I just want to get kind of take the temperature of the Planning Commission on whether you support, further investigating this an idea. So there is a specific zoning district with standards for these public and institutional, land uses.
Commissioner Brink?
So Donovan, are you saying if I wanted to revert my house back into a hospital, I can't do that under this current map?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, Donovan, don't we currently, all of those aren't actually districts for like the churches are and whatnot. Don't they just use the underlying zoning, the district that they're in currently?
They do. And so it's, these are all residential districts. It's MXR1 or SF. And that is something to me, it's kind of an unanswered question because, we've processed all these conditional use permits for these. Those don't really go away for like the, say the churches or the schools. And so I'm not sure exactly how that would work. I could definitely find out, but then, or maybe it's just something it's public institutional and it relates to, government, facilities. And so that maybe that's how that it comes out. And basically that underlying zoning is, still stays. But to me, it just seems like I want to have the conversation because it seems like it's a missing. I'm not sure if it, in a previous comprehensive rezoning, if this discussion came up, and maybe I'm just trying to, cover ground that's already been discussed and discarded as an idea as having a public institutional zoning district. Could you shed any light on that, our veterans, commissioners?
Would this be like more like a shoreline ordinance or overlay district versus, I'm really having a hard time getting these separate districts within.
No, it would be it would be the zoning district rather than having the underlying zoning district as we now have.
Commissioner Batty?
Just a little history on this. With the work that I've been involved in over the years, I've run into this type of zoning quite often. So it is fairly common out there. I think Wyoming is set up pretty much this way. I don't know. I don't know about the total list, but I know places of worship in Wyoming are included in this. I was gonna kid you, Donovan, for including cemeteries and columbariums but excluding mausoleums.
Oh.
Commissioner Young?
Good point.
I don't think that we've ever had a zoning district that was specific to institutional and governmental uses. Not as long as I've been watching planning. So call that 95, 96.
Hmm.
Or watching planning in Forest Lake.
Okay.
Commissioner Brink?
So Commissioner Batty, you said that Wyoming does have this. You know, any other towns that have specific zoning?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked over a good share of the Midwest here, and I've run into it quite often. Down in over in Wisconsin, down along the lake there, I've worked pretty much right up the lake there and run into it in a number of different communities. So it's not a unique thing.
All the
So
hippest cities are adopting this.
how does this work then, Donovan? Where I want to build a new church, let's say. So I go on, I buy some residential property because I can, and I can put my church there. Our first step then would be to rezone that.
No, I don't think the conditional use goes away for in other zoning districts. That's not what I envision. I mean, it still be possible. I mean, so, but it would basically kind of provide just more certainty around this. I mean, one thing I've come up with is, the high school wants to do like another storage building that, for whatever club. Well, they need to come and get a conditional use permit amendment, which you might say that's a good thing, but to me, if there was more latitude for staff to kind of, say whether really this was significant or not, which there is for like site plan, reviews, which I think extends a little bit to conditional use permit amendments, but I think it would just, or a church maybe wanted to, like I did answer the question recently, the church wanted to expand the columbarium. And we looked at the record and found out, oh, actually it's just filling out the one they started years ago. They built only half of it. So now they're building the second half, I guess, as they've needed to. But if they want to add a third little row of columbariums, that potentially could be a conditional use permit amendment, and it's just for like a larger brick wall. So I guess I'd like to have some of these places that are special districts maybe a little more latitude so that they can do what they do and not have to come back for permission for things that and maybe in other areas it wouldn't require that sort of planning official public review or approval.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I guess my statement was, or what I was just thinking is, as we were talking about the schools, is sometimes and Donovan, I think you answered the question, but my concern was a lot of times schools are built based on demand, based on population growth, based on housing and things like that in areas. And if you start designating areas that, basically institutional or public zoning, then we'd be back to, let's say there's a huge growth on the south end of the city, but it's not zoned for this public institutional zoning, and they don't want to put their school, let's say, up on the north side where we have the zoning. Are you saying they could still apply for a conditional use permit, or are they going to be restricted to us saying, nope, you got to go into the institutional zoning, you can't put this school here?
Yeah, so I mean, this is good because I hadn't considered how that could impact new schools. But my thinking so far is that not to impact that. If someone wanted to bring a school in, it still would be a conditional use, and we go through that review process for official review. And if they got the conditional use permit, it would basically cement that, and maybe in the future, that's when the future land use plan might include that site or not. Well, actually, I guess it would kind of maybe you'd want. I mean, that would seem to make sense. It'd be included in the future. But I don't know. This is something that this is up for discussion.
Commissioner Young?
When we had the conceptual discussion of the tiny houses at the church, it was sort of presented that they can do what they darn well please because they have the church designation.
Mm-hmm.
So now why, if we did the institutional, how would that play in? And if the church can do what they kind of darn well please, now I'm wondering why we had to do the CUP for the columbarium.
There is the phrase that the church can do what they damn well please would just cause
darn.
the city attorney's head just to explode. Okay. Certainly it does. It is kind of it's RLUIPA. It's Religious Institutions Land Use Religious and Institutionalized Persons Land Use Act. It's a federal act. And it doesn't give, it certainly has a certain kind of kryptonite quality to zoning. But it doesn't just erase, zoning standards from that, that property. What it does, it says that it cannot, the city cannot do a substantial burden upon their practice of their religion at that site. Like the church, like the city couldn't say, well, you can't put up a 50-foot steeple, because right now the steeples are 45 feet max in the city or something like that, because 50 is closer to heaven, so that's why they put it up at 50. So basically you can't interfere with their religious. So the city couldn't say no to a columbarium if that was part of, the religious ritual around burial, but they still means the house place of worship still needs to go through the city process, follow certain standards, get a building permit or not. In this case, columbariums don't require a building permit in the city of Forest Lake, I found out recently. So it's a little bit of a nuanced discussion there, but it's, zoning still does apply.
Commissioner Batty?
There's another issue that I've run into with this type of zoning here, and that is sometimes, quite often acreages are involved with this, and sometimes you get people buying land, part of it's in the institutional zoning, and or they'll have a church and build it there, and then they'll want to expand and buy land that's not zoned, and you've got it's just probably a logistical thing that's got to be worked out, but this kind of adds a twist to that. I think you really got to carefully, I can see that a number of these things are logical in here. But I think you've got to carefully think through kind of, no pun intended, the edges of this thing and how it's going to work within the rest of the fabric of the community here.
Okay.
Other comments, concerns? Some idea of how to proceed here, Donovan, or would you need more input? My general consensus is they were all a wee bit nervous about going down this road.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to flush this out a little better.
No, that's helpful though. I think raising more questions is good. So and that's what I want discussion, and so discussion is those questions. So thank you.
All righty, thank you. We'll move on to item number 11, which is other. Typically, I would start with our council person, but I can see that she is not here this evening. So is there any issue anybody would like to bring up? Donovan?
Okay. Or Commissioner Keen, you want to go first? I've been talking a lot tonight.
Okay. I was just wondering, Donovan, has the city pursued the Winnick area at all for their CUP and shrubberies that I know we discussed this a couple years ago. We gave them till, the spring or the fall, and then he came back with salt problems, and we had everything solved, but then, like nothing ever happened. It's been years.
Nothing has happened. I don't really, I think we've been focused on kind of the building process of, as far as the leadership, getting roads paved and, long-term financial, decisions made. And so I guess that's understanding that compliance there is not an easy task. I think at this point that, we've just decided to let that be at the moment.
I was just curious because I get people ask me, it's been an eyesore. It's right in the middle of the city. It's on one of our major intersections off of 61. And, people are just curious, is the city going to do anything, or they're just going to let him do what he wants?
Duly noted. Donovan, you had something?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Whenever there's a public decision for a denial, that following that, at the following meeting, staff will prepare, and actually with assistance of the city attorney, a resolution of denial for council's consideration that states the reasons why, so that it's clear that that there's a firm basis, for that decision. So I'll bring that at our next planning commission meeting.
This is in regards to the decision with the high school sign.
Correct. And something else I want to offer is maybe it's a little bit of a reminder. I mean, I think it's a reminder. It's for me. I'm always I'm learning more about these. I had to go to the city attorney to discuss it, and it's it relates to, and this could be something that we're going to be experiencing now if we get more subdivision applications in. And that is developers reaching out to planning commission members and to discuss projects. And this is something that I never encourage developers. I'd never give out contact information for planning commission members. And in my discussion with the city attorney, he didn't say hang up the phone when they call, though of course you can choose not to speak. But there's one piece of it is that, what he did encourage is that if developers do call, you could listen, but then state firmly that any information that the developer is providing in this private conversation, this ex parte conversation, it should be repeated, should be presented to the planning commission so that they can base their decision upon the full range of information. And that, the planning commissions can get in trouble when a decision is made based on conversations privately, where decisions are based on those information gained privately. And really it's most proper that commissioners base their decisions on the information that's presented during the public hearing, during the public presentations, public testimony, but that we're gathering together with the same fact set and then basing decision on that fact set. So I strongly encourage you to, if you're contacted, to say the message, hey, I'd like, that's a good point. Present it at the planning commission so they can also know this. They can also hear your persuasion. If it's that important to call me about it, well, it's really important for you also to express it in a public forum so that it can be used to give you the result you want, at that planning commission meeting, at that public meeting. So I just wanted to offer that as either information or a reminder around those type of conversations.
Mr. Young?
And the gentleman in question did not like hearing that. I explained that, no, I'm not gonna discuss that. I'm not interested, bring it to the commission, and he didn't appreciate that.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think you're walking a real fine line when you even entertain that conversation, especially if you vote in favor of something and it's determined later that maybe you voted that way because you had a private conversation. I think you're opening up a lot of trouble for the city and for our commission. So I don't think that's right. I think it's best to say those are things that we can discuss at the planning commission meeting. You're welcome to join us and have all the conversation you'd like.
Commissioner Batty?
This is changing the subject, but I've been at, I'll just state it this way, in a general way. I've been at multiple planning commissions, not this one, where when a motion to approve was denied, that it was immediately followed by a motion to deny. And I've got Robert's Rules of Orders here, and it's hiding behind something here, so I couldn't find it. But I don't know if that's an issue or not. I'm just telling you, my experience has included multiple times seeing when there was a motion denied, where a motion to approve something was denied, that it was immediately followed by a motion to deny, which then would have passed. I don't know what would have happened here with a tie. This something that so rarely happens. I don't know if that's an issue or not. I just brought it
The
up.
redundancy though to.
The Department of Redundancy Department, right, yeah.
Other issues, comments? I have one. I have a question for the commissioners this evening. For many years, the commission ran what I would call very informally. We did by a lot of first names. When Chair Langness ran it, we went by commissioners. And what I'm looking for is, what is your preference? I don't really care either way. But if you have a preference, I would just like to know. If you want to keep it like it's been, that's fine. I don't really care. I just want to make it the most productive meeting that we can make it. Commissioner Miller.
You can call me anything you would like.
Commissioner Young.
My father's line was, call me anything you want, just don't call me late to dinner.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
I go by my lord or my liege.
Personally, I do better with first names, and that's why I'm asking. If it wouldn't offend you, I would go back to that. But if you would prefer we stay on a more formal, I'm more than happy to comply with that. And I'm willing to go either way. Commissioner Brink?
I'm fine with first name. I think with roll call though, we would just do the commissioner or we would do first names, but yeah, it doesn't matter to me either, so.
All righty.
It makes no difference to me what you do. It's just whatever you're comfortable doing. I just want to get the job done. I don't care how it sounds.
You and me both. I know. All righty. Based on that, I'll use first names. We'll see how. Yes, Donovan?
Oh, I want to add another mention of something. I thought you were about to call for another motion.
I was getting there.
But just want to mention that we do have agenda for the March 24th meeting. The Timber Ridge 2 final PUD is on the docket. So we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Very good. Commissioner Keen?
Or Mike. Say, Donovan, Have you heard anything lately or any feedback about the little houses?
Yes. And it is, oh, Karen, you want to say something too? It's not specific to Forest Lake or the Faith Lutheran Church, but there is a bill now, and it's got a few sponsors in the state legislature to allow, sacred settlements. And the current draft text pretty much just, blindsides all the zoning rules and allows them as a permitted use in religious property. And that's quite a generalization, and that's still a bill, and still I don't think it's been voted out of committee, but it's gotten some traction. So I think we're going to see some of that in public discussion, coming up. So we'll see where that goes. But currently, we haven't met with that project team since, God, it might have been sometime in the summer, and we used to have another meeting pending to talk about safety issues. But we haven't established that one yet. So it's really, I think they're seeking to get the state statute changed so that they can really enable that, this type of, development on their church property.
So basically every church could have 100 tiny houses.
There's really no limit within the state statute. And so that would come down to this, the health, safety, and public welfare piece of it. And I think it's one of the main critiques of it is that, there's really no kind of, limitations to it that really reflect why we only allow certain types of densities of habitation for different reasons.
A lot of solar panels on those roofs.
Based on that, the chair will take a motion to adjourn for this evening. Mr. Miller?
I
motion?
would make that motion to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Keen seconds.
Second.
Pardon me?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Hi.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
and Chair Gerard.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for participating this evening. See you in a couple weeks.